Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, its valuation against USD and against Bitcoin. We're going to be looking at some historical moves to try to gauge where Ethereum could be heading over the next several weeks. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we're going to systematically break this down. Okay, we're just going to look at the data, and I'll sort of draw my conclusions. You guys can draw whatever conclusions you want. We're just going to look at the data. Okay, the first place we should start is we've had a nice pullback. Okay, business as usual. This is certainly nothing to get out of bed for. Right, 20 to 30% drops are essentially par for the course in crypto. There's no reason to get too distressed by something like this. Now, with that said, let's look to see where we could theoretically be in terms of a continued Ethereum surge. Now, the way we can do this is, well, you guys know the drill. Look at Bitcoin. Something that's interesting. I'm not saying this is a market cycle top for Bitcoin, but it could certainly be a local top, right? 58K could be a local top. I'm not going to claim it is. I don't think anyone would be surprised if it rallied back up to this level, because in the last cycle, it did make it to the top of the band. In the cycle before that, it made it to the top of the band. In fact, in both cycles, it made it slightly above the band if you zoom in. So we're not going to say that this is a market cycle top, but it could theoretically be a local top. Now, what's interesting, as we know, during the last cycle, Bitcoin had this major move to 20K. It bounced back down. Where did it ultimately fall to? Well, you can see it had a wick to the 50-day moving average on December 21st, 4 days after its peak. It bounced back up, but then it had another test of the 50-day moving average on December 30th, and then it had sort of this dead cat bounce up to $17,000, which was about 12%, 13% below its prior all-time high. And if you remember, this little bunny hill right here where it went up, and then even on the downslope, this is the period where Ethereum went absolutely crazy. Okay, let's look at it. Let's go look at Ethereum USD. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to look at the daily time frame back in the end of 2017, early 2018. Let's throw on our 50-day moving average as well. This is the 20 days, so we're going to put on the 50-day. You can see Ethereum on December 17th, Ethereum was here. This was when Bitcoin peaked, and Ethereum experienced, from its local top, it experienced a 43% drop. It did not preclude it from going back up another 200% or so. Okay, now when did this move occur? This is what's important. When did this move occur? Because we know we had a pretty scary sell-off. It shook out some people, and then we had another surge afterward. So we might look back at the current day and in the future and say, okay, this was a drop, shook some people out, and then maybe we continued higher directly after it. Now we'll have to wait and ultimately see, but you can see we came close to the 50-day moving average. Not quite, but we did come close to it. Now, it started surging on January 2nd. Really, you could argue it started January or December 31st, but that was more or less just turning sideways. The main surge started on January 2nd, give or take, 1 to 2 days, where it was a couple days among friends. You go back and look at Bitcoin. Its surge also started the same time, January 2nd. It was having a decisive move off the 50-day moving average. So during this period, it had a decisive move off the 50-day moving average. How long did that take from the peak for Bitcoin? Well, if you go from the peak to the decisive move on January 2nd, it took 16 days. 16 days, and during that 16 days, Bitcoin was having a dead cat bounce back up. Now, what would that look like today? Let's suppose, again, there's no guarantees, but let's suppose that Bitcoin had its local top on at 58K on the 21st of February. So if we were to go, say, what was it, 13 days? I need to double check actually. 16 days, if we were to go 16 days out from the local top, maybe, we would be looking at about March 5th. Okay, we'd be looking at March 5th in that scenario. Now, the interesting thing is, what would that look like if Bitcoin continued to emulate that last move? Well, it could theoretically look like Bitcoin dropping down to the 50-day moving average. Now, there's no guarantees that it will do that. Currently, the 50-day moving average is at $41,000, but it is moving up relatively quickly. In a week or so, there's a decent chance the 50-day moving average is going to be at 42K, which is also the prior local top over here. So, in the event that we drop back down and then bounce off the 50-day, and you sort of see this dead cat bounce by Bitcoin, if we're not able to put in a new high, and we start to do this number and then come back down, this would probably be prime time for Ethereum, probably prime time. And it would sort of make sense with a lot of the other things we've looked at. You know, one of the things we've said before is that a lot of times for Ethereum to make a major move, we first need a Bitcoin correction. Also, we said that a lot of other coins will probably go first, because the idea is that the Ethereum tsunami is sort of the last thing to move before the entire asset class cools down for a few months. Okay, so if we see some level of history repeating itself and Bitcoin corrects to the 50-day moving average, bounces, and sort of has a dead cat bounce here, comes back down, during this period, Ethereum could theoretically rally. We know that Bitcoin started rallying about 16 days later. So I believe it was 16 days from 16 days. So if we were to go out, say 13 days, we'd be looking at March 5th. If we were to go out 16 days, we'd be looking at March 8th. Okay, so 16 days would put that on March 8th. And if we were to do that, and we go look at say what did Ethereum do last time, how long did it rally after that 16-day mark, starting from January 2nd. So starting from this point, how long did it rally before it hit its peak? It rallied for about 11 days. So a week and a half, approximately a week and a half. So if this same pattern continues, let's suppose that Bitcoin ultimately corrects to the 20-day or the 50-day moving average by the 8th, and then has a nice little bounce. In that scenario, we might see Ethereum have another surge starting March 8th, theoretically speaking, if history were to repeat exactly. And then if it were to continue as long as the last one, as I said, it would be about 11 days. So 11 days from March 8th would be, this is March 7th, 11 days from March 8th would put it on, obviously, March 19th. So this is obviously very speculative discussion. There's no guarantees here about anything, but I do want people to recognize, it's easy for people to get very discouraged on Ethereum because you have a nice little pullback, but I don't think this is the end of the world by any means. In fact, if Bitcoin goes to the 50-day, then Ethereum's likely going to bleed even more. If it bleeds the same amount that it did last time before bouncing back up, it could correspond to a 40% drop, which could it could take it all the way down to $1,200 potentially if it continued to emulate last cycle. I'm not necessarily saying that's going to happen, but that's something to take into consideration. So with that said, there's no free lunch, of course. The risk that you're paying, as always, is you don't want Bitcoin to capitulate to the 20-week moving average. That always and historically has been our downside risk. As long as that does not happen, Ethereum can still theoretically have a nice little rally. Okay, it can have a nice rally. It could blow away a lot of other short-term moves by crypto while it's rallying, and then everyone will be watching Ethereum. This is sort of what I think. I think that if altcoins, there's a decent chance other coins will rally for, maybe another week or two, as long as Bitcoin doesn't capitulate. And then if the status quo remains unchanged, a lot of those coins, those profits will probably bleed back into Ethereum, and then Ethereum can move. Now, the exact timeline of this is hard to get right. You know, we showed March 8th as a theoretical time, but that's basically if it were to emulate exactly what it did last cycle, and there's a decent chance that it doesn't do that. There's also a reasonable chance that Bitcoin goes back into price discovery. And if Bitcoin goes back into price discovery, then we're kicking the can down the road on any sort of major move of Ethereum against Bitcoin. So this is ultimately what we're looking for. And if you look at the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, if we just quickly pull up the Ether Bitcoin valuation, we can see that, you know, it has, of course it's been bleeding. We know it's been bleeding, and we expect it to bleed as long as Bitcoin volatility remains high. So we keep saying every single video, it's more likely to go down than to go up as long as Bitcoin volatility is staying this high. And so far, Bitcoin has not settled down. You know, each and every day, every say 3 days, if we were to say look at 3-day candles, it's moving down, right? So far, it's moving down, and this 3-day candle just started. So far, Bitcoin is systematically moving down, so we cannot yet say that it's stabilized or anything like that. It also hasn't had a definitive bounce off anything that's been super consequential yet. It might bounce on any given day, but so far it has been trending down. I imagine Ethereum is waiting for either this to stop or for maybe it to come down to the 50-day, have a bounce, but it doesn't go back into price discovery mode, and then Ethereum could theoretically rally. Hopefully this makes sense. If you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below, and remember to also check out the premium list, which you can find a link to the sale in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye.